Beneath the last fading traces of sunlight, where the ocean becomes a world of pressure, silence, and living darkness, something small drifts through the abyss carrying its own cold glow. It is not the largest shark in the sea. It is not the most famous. And yet, the Velvet Belly Lanternshark may be one of the most unsettling creatures ever shaped by evolution. Hidden in the deep waters of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, this elusive predator uses bioluminescence to disappear, to hunt, and perhaps even to warn. It looks like a shadow with a pulse of light, a creature that seems less like an animal and more like a secret the ocean has kept for millions of years. Tonight, we descend into that secret and uncover how this tiny glowing shark survives in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Before we dive deeper into the abyss, subscribe to Abyssal Chronicles and turn on notifications so you never miss our next descent into the ocean's darkest mysteries. Far below the reach of sunlight, where the sea no longer feels like water but like the weight of a planet pressing in from every direction, a small shark moves through the darkness carrying its own secret light. It does not rush. It does not thrash. It glides like a sliver of night cut loose from the abyss itself. If you saw it for only a second, you might mistake it for a trick of the deep, a phantom stitched together from shadow and blue fire. But it is real. It is alive. And for centuries, it has been slipping through one of the most hostile environments on Earth almost unnoticed. This is the Velvet Belly Lanternshark, a creature so small it could fit beneath your arm, yet so perfectly adapted to the darkness that it feels less like an animal and more like a message from another world. To understand why this shark feels ancient, you have to step back from the species itself and look at the lineage it belongs to. Sharks as a group trace their story back more than 400 million years, long before dinosaurs, long before mammals, long before forests looked anything like they do today. The Velvet Belly Lanternshark is not itself that old, of course, but it belongs to a dynasty of survivors, a branch of life that endured planetary upheavals, shifting seas, and multiple mass extinctions. Somewhere along that immense timeline, in the long cold history of the ocean, this little lanternshark's ancestors found a realm most other predators could not truly master, the dim slopes and twilight depths beyond the continental shelves. Imagine the prehistoric seas that shaped its kind. Not the bright coral worlds of postcards, but older oceans, deeper ones, full of drifting cephalopods, primitive fishes, and silent migrations through layers of darkness. In such places, survival did not belong only to the biggest hunter or the fastest swimmer. It belonged to the creature that wasted the least energy, revealed the least about itself, and turned the deep sea's cruelty into camouflage. That is the genius of the Velvet Belly Lanternshark. It did not evolve to dominate by force. It evolved to disappear. Today, this shark lives across a wide range of the eastern Atlantic and the Mediterranean, from colder northern waters near Iceland and Norway down toward warmer regions farther south. It has been recorded from about 70 meters to nearly 2,000 meters deep, though it is most often found between roughly 200 and 500 meters, near the outer continental shelf and upper slope, especially over soft bottoms. In some regions, researchers describe it as one of the more common deep-water sharks, and in Norwegian waters it is even identified as the country's smallest shark. That alone tells you something important. In a place where food is scarce and danger can come from above or below, smallness is not weakness. Smallness can be precision. At first glance, the Velvet Belly Lanternshark looks almost modest. It usually reaches about 40 centimeters, though larger individuals can approach 55 to 60 centimeters. Its body is dark, compact, and beautifully understated, with a flattened snout, no anal fin, and a spine in front of each of its two dorsal fins. Its skin has the soft, dusky appearance that gave it its common name, as though the shark were wrapped in black velvet. But that surface is only the beginning of the illusion. Hidden across its underside and in specialized patterns across its body are photophores, tiny light-producing organs that transform the shark from a dark animal into a living instrument of bioluminescence. And this is where the lantern shark stops feeling merely unusual and starts feeling almost impossible. Scientists studying Etmopterus Spinax found that its luminous pattern is not random. It is organized into multiple glowing zones, each capable of responding in different ways. In one major study, researchers described 9 luminous zones in this species and showed that its light is hormonally controlled. Melatonin and prolactin can trigger the glow, while other hormones can inhibit it. That means this is not a simple biochemical flicker. It is regulated, tuned, adjusted. The shark does not just glow. It controls when and how it glows, as if darkness itself were part of its nervous system. Why would a shark need to shine in the deep? Because in the ocean's twilight, darkness is not enough to hide you. There is still faint light filtering down from the surface. Any animal swimming below you can look upward and see your silhouette as a darker shape against that dim blue ceiling. For a small shark, that silhouette can be a death sentence. The Velvet Belly Lanternshark solves this by glowing from below. Its underside emits light that helps erase its shadow and match the weak downwelling light above. Scientists call this counterillumination, and in simple terms it means the shark wears light the way soldiers wear camouflage. It does not hide by being darker. It hides by becoming exactly bright enough to vanish. That alone would make this shark extraordinary. But researchers discovered something even stranger. Some of its luminous organs sit near the dorsal defensive spines, and experiments suggest that this light can shine through the partially translucent spines themselves. In 2013, scientists described this effect as a kind of warning system visible to potential predators from several meters away. The image is unforgettable. A tiny shark armed with glowing spines, like dim underwater blades suspended in black water. One paper popularized the comparison with lightsabers, and although that word belongs to fantasy, the underlying biology is real. In the deep sea, warning signs do not need to roar. Sometimes they only need to glow. Researchers have also found evidence that the glow may matter in courtship and species recognition. In the pelvic region, males and females show differences in luminescent response, which suggests that some of the shark's light display may help with reproduction. Other studies on lantern sharks indicate that their dorsal patterns can be species-specific, almost like luminous fingerprints in the dark. That raises a haunting possibility. In water so dim that shapes blur and color disappears, these sharks may know one another by constellations of light. Not faces. Not calls. Not scent alone. Patterns. Signals. A silent visual language written directly onto the body. Even before birth, the Velvet Belly Lanternshark seems to be preparing for this world of concealment and signal. Studies on embryos and early development showed that its bioluminescent system becomes functional before the pups are born. Scientists interpreted that early development as support for the counterillumination hypothesis, because the glow appears ready at the very start of life. That detail changes the emotional weight of the story. These young sharks do not enter a nursery of safety. They enter a dim, dangerous world already dressed for invisibility. From their first moments, the abyss is asking them the only question it ever asks: can you survive here without being seen? The deep sea it inhabits is often called alien, and for once that word is not an exaggeration. Below the sunlit surface, the ocean becomes a vertical desert broken by falling scraps of organic matter, drifting jellies, glowing crustaceans, and sudden eruptions of life around prey patches. Pressure climbs brutally. Temperatures drop. Sound behaves strangely. Distance becomes deceptive. A few meters can feel like infinity when nothing but darkness surrounds you. In that world, the Velvet Belly Lanternshark does not move like an apex brute. It moves like a patient equation solved over millions of years. Enough muscle to strike, enough stealth to avoid being struck, enough light to disappear, enough instinct to waste nothing. Its diet reveals that same efficiency. Studies from southern Portugal and other parts of its range show that the Velvet Belly Lanternshark is a generalized benthopelagic forager. In plain language, it hunts both near the seafloor and in the water above it, taking whatever prey fits the economy of the deep. Smaller individuals feed heavily on crustaceans, including krill-like animals and shrimps, while larger ones take more teleost fish and cephalopods. Researchers have also suggested that larger animals may scavenge more often. That makes sense. In the deep sea, a carcass is not a grim accident. It is a banquet. A creature that can shift from active hunting to opportunistic feeding gains the one advantage every abyssal survivor needs: flexibility. Picture the hunt. A cloud of micronectin flickers in the dark like sparks blown through a furnace. Somewhere beneath them, the lantern shark rises from shadow. Not fast at first. Just present. Its belly glow softens its outline. Its dark back merges with the water above. Its prey may sense pressure waves, maybe a subtle displacement, but by then the distance has collapsed. The shark lunges. Jaws close. A shrimp vanishes. A small fish disappears headfirst. Then the predator settles back into blackness, as if the attack had been performed by the sea itself. Yet for all its elegance, this shark is not invincible. It lives in a realm increasingly touched by human gear. Deep water trawls, longlines, and other fisheries do not target it consistently for high value, but they catch it anyway, often as bycatch. That matters, because deep water sharks tend to grow slowly, mature late relative to many shallower fishes, and produce limited numbers of young. The Velvet Belly Lanternshark is ovoviviparous, meaning the young develop inside the mother and are born alive. Reported litter sizes are often around 5 to 20 pups, born at roughly 12 to 14 centimeters long. For a species living in a harsh environment, that is not a reckless strategy. It is measured. But measured reproduction also means populations may struggle when losses pile up. Some studies of its population structure suggest a depth-related segregation by sex and stage of life. Pregnant females appear to move from deeper mating grounds toward shallower nursery areas, while larger, older, and mature animals often occur deeper down. That kind of vertical partitioning is one of the quietest dramas in the ocean, an invisible geography of life stages, written not across continents, but across depth. To us, 300 meters and 700 meters sound like measurements. To the shark, they may represent courtship, gestation, birth, feeding, and risk. The abyss has its own map, and this species seems to read it with extraordinary precision. There are other hazards too, including parasites so strange they sound invented. Researchers note that velvet belly lanternsharks are sometimes found carrying the parasitic barnacle Anelasma squalicola, which attaches near the fins and feeds on the shark's tissues and blood. Even in the deep sea, where forms already look unreal, nature still finds ways to become more unsettling. A glowing shark hunted by unseen predators, trailed through darkness, burdened by a parasite that evolved from an ordinary barnacle into a blood-feeding specialist. The abyss never stops rewriting the rules of life. And then there is the modern scientific mystery still surrounding this species. We know a great deal more about it than people once did, but there are still gaps that feel enormous. How exactly do different populations mix across such a wide range? How much do climate shifts alter its depth distribution? How resilient is it to sustained bycatch pressure in different fisheries? Newer habitat studies continue to map where it concentrates and where its critical life stages may unfold, because without that knowledge, protection remains guesswork. Even now, scientists are still trying to illuminate the basic rhythms of a shark that has spent its existence mastering obscurity. Its conservation status reflects that uncertainty mixed with concern. The global IUCN Red List assessment published in 2021 classifies the velvet belly lanternshark as vulnerable, with a decreasing population trend. That does not mean the species is vanishing everywhere at once. It means enough evidence has accumulated to warn that this remarkable shark is under real pressure, especially from accidental catches in deep-water fisheries. A creature can be common in parts of its range and still be sliding toward trouble overall. That is often how decline begins in the deep, not with spectacle, but with silence, in places few people ever see. There is a cruel irony in that. The velvet belly lanternshark survived by becoming nearly invisible, and invisibility is exactly what makes it easy for us to overlook. Giant sharks capture headlines. Monster squids become legends. But a half-meter lanternshark glowing softly in the twilight zone can pass through both ocean and imagination almost undetected. And yet, to biologists, it is a marvel. It offers clues about the evolution of shark bioluminescence, the engineering of light organs, the ecological logic of camouflage in midwater, and the ways small predators partition the deep-sea food web. Scientists do not study it because it is famous. They study it because it answers questions nothing else can answer as elegantly. There is also something deeply human in our reaction to this animal. We look into the deep and expect terror to arrive with size, teeth, and violence. But the velvet belly lanternshark unsettles us differently. It is small, quiet, controlled. It glows not like a beacon, but like a secret. It reminds us that the ocean's most haunting creatures are not always the largest. Sometimes the most disturbing life forms are the ones that seem to belong too perfectly to a world we can barely enter. A shark that lights itself to erase its own shadow feels less like brute nature and more like a dark idea made flesh. Imagine a submersible descending through the continental slope at night. The last traces of sun are gone. The instruments hum. The beams sweep across suspended particles like snow in empty space. Then, off the edge of the light, a form appears. Small. Deliberate. Its underside gives off a muted glow, just enough to blur its outline. For a moment it hangs there, one of the few vertebrates on Earth carrying its own concealment system across a realm of pressure and hunger. The pilots stare. The cameras roll. The shark turns slightly, and one luminous line near a dorsal spine catches the light. Then it is gone again, not fleeing, not panicking, simply withdrawing into the element that shaped it best, darkness. And that may be the most powerful thing about the Velvet Belly Lanternshark. It is not a relic in the sense of being outdated. It is ancient in a more terrifying way. It is refined. Its body is a solution. Its glow is a calculation. Its behavior is the result of a long argument between predation and concealment, between hunger and survival, between being seen and staying alive. It did not survive because the deep sea is gentle. It survived because the deep sea is merciless, and this shark learned to answer that mercy with perfect restraint. So when we speak of monsters of the abyss, perhaps we should be careful. The true mystery of the deep is not always a giant mouth or a prehistoric myth waiting to rise from below. Sometimes it is a living thread of velvet black muscle, no longer than a forearm, drifting under a ceiling of cold blue, glowing just enough to cancel its shadow. A shark that turns light into invisibility. A hunter that hides by shining. A survivor from one of Earth's oldest lineages, still moving through the pressure and silence as though the darkness itself had chosen a shape. And somewhere tonight, beyond the reach of waves and weather, the Velvet Belly Lanternshark is still there. Still hunting. Still vanishing. Still carrying its quiet lantern through a world that remains, even now, one of the last truly unknown places on this planet. We send down cameras, sensors, steel spheres, and human curiosity, and still the deep keeps most of its truth to itself. That is why this shark matters. Not because it is the biggest. Not because it is the deadliest. But because it shows us how much wonder can still hide in darkness, and how little of the ocean we truly understand. The abyss is not empty. It is alive with solutions stranger than fiction. And among them, glowing softly where almost no one will ever see, moves the Velvet Belly Lanternshark. Primary sources used for the factual backbone include the IUCN Red List Assessment, the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research Species Profile, and multiple peer-reviewed studies on the shark's luminescence, diet, reproduction, ontogeny, and habitat.